I haven't seen many reports of people seeing Yeti. I mean, are there a lot of actual sightings of an actual Yeti, and can you talk about those at all?
Well, I haven't paid a lot of attention to the Yeti stuff for years. The Yeti, of course, was the first of the mystery primates to be talked about to any great extent. The people up in the British were wanting to climb Mount Everest, and that was a big deal back in the 50s. And Eric Shipton, in his attempt to climb, while he was climbing Mount Everest, took photographs of these strange footprints in the snow, and those photographs went all over the world. That was in 1951. That's when I started collecting materials, as a matter of fact. The beginning of this museum was back then, and there was a lot of interest in the tales of the Yeti because, of course, when they found the tracks and they asked the Sherpas about it, the Sherpas said, "Oh, Metokongmi," and which was mistranslated into abominable snowman, and they called them Yeti, Mete, Zute. They had all these different, a whole hierarchy of names describing different sized Yetis of various kinds. And there was all this talk amongst the British mountaineers and the British society, all the British nobles that would sit around in the country clubs, and they were the explorers and the people who went out on expeditions for zoos and things like that. And so the Yeti became quite a topic of conversation, and there were all these tales of mountaineers who going over the passes in the Himalayas, seeing these apes, these upright apes. Now, I personally believe that the reason that they were seeing upright apes had more to do with the snow than anything else. In other words, you have an animal that's called the abominable snowman. It's kind of a misnomer because, first of all, they're apparently not all that abominable, and they really do not live in the snow. It's pretty well established that they live in the subalpine forests just below the snow line, and these kinds of forests, coniferous forests, and they will travel from one valley to another when the food supply gets low. Ivan Sanderson suggested that he had heard they were really fond of some saline moss, that they had a craving for this, and that they also liked rhododendrons, and there were certain prized pieces of their diet that they would travel great distances in order to get to these once the local supply had been played out. And in getting from one valley to another, they would have to cross these snow-covered passes, and the passes, the snow is cold. And there were experiments done on chimpanzees where they would take a chimpanzee, which of course normally lives in a tropical jungle down on the forest floor, and throw them out in the snowfields, and the first thing that a chimp does when it encounters snow is stand up. Now, it makes a lot of sense. We know that if a human walks in the snow without shoes on, a normal human, they're going to get frostbite on their feet. And this is something that can end in death. And so here's an animal that's got to travel through the snow. So what it does is it stands up on two legs, and it stays on two legs for a much longer time than it would normally do that, because it doesn't want its hands, which are probably much less calloused and nowhere near as prepared for close contact with snow as the feet would be. Because even amongst quadrupeds of the ape family, they do walk on their knuckles, but they spend time with their knuckles up off the ground as well. So the back legs are going to have a thicker callus on the feet than the hands would, and so it makes sense that they would want to stay up on their hind feet when they're going through the snowfields. And that's what these tracks tend to indicate, and that's why they were described as a biped, and they thought that was so astounding. And so you had the idea of this bipedal ape, but I think that if, from what I've read, the Sherpas and the others in Bhutan and in Tibet and in the areas around where these things are seen, describe them as typically running around in the rocks down on all fours, behaving much like an ape, and they are very, very seldom, if ever, described as being white. And of course, every shot you've ever seen in pop culture of a Yeti is white. That's because of the moniker snowman. Once again, they don't live in the snow. They only pass through it trying to go find some food. And I believe that they are just apes, knuckle walkers. Got to answer the phone.